Continuing with the longerons in the canopy section of the aircraft. We're following the same process of transforming, or doing an axis transformation, axis to axis translation of the cross section. Then we will use a multi-section volume to create these longeron segments. I'm omitting that small piece on the end and am just going to start the cabin longeron at the next intersection there. Just because that piece would be so small. And now making intersection points on the back side of that canopy section where we can start the fuselage, or the cabin section of the fuselage. Now the cabin section is relatively constant in terms of cross section, so we won't need to add stations along the way to account for any sort of twisting. So we can just put a cross section at the back, and really we can probably just do a sweep instead of a volume extrusion, not a sweep, of the longeron cross section rather than a multi-section volume, just because it's essentially following a straight line. But we can use these sections, or those points that I just created, for the cabins or the tail section if we don't need them for the cabin. Again, creating axes on these points. Z goes into the aircraft. Y is tangent to the frame. X is tangent to the longeron guideline. So volume sweep along this guide curve. Okay. So there's a much simpler way to go about it. Here we have a broken curve. So I already have this curve disassembled under intersect 44 in the tree here. That's curve 3, curve 4, curve 5. And I selected the wrong curve there to follow. It's actually curve 5. So that's a good practice when you break up one of these guides, is put it in a geometrical set under whatever the intersect was originally called, so that it's easy to find later. Easy to keep them straight. So we'll continue sweeping volumes along those smaller segments. When we get back to the final one, runs all the way along the length. Now for these broken segments, we're going to have to create new points and axes wherever we need to restart the volume, or restart the longeron. Make sure you're in the right geometrical set that you want to be in. And I didn't want to use that multi-section surface. So here I just filled in that gap in the video, I just put in all these points and axes. You could ignore that multi-section volume stuff that I was trying to do. You also notice that for some of the points, it automatically swept or extruded the volume in both directions there along the line. So that was very convenient. By the window is where it happened. And on the back side of the wing there. So now the final section, the tail. And in the back section, since it gets so small, we're going to taper off where we use the longerons. We're just going to switch to every other longeron guideline, and we're going to stop them one frame short, or go all the way to the end, going every other. You'll see in a second here what I mean. So I'm creating intersection points on every other intersection. And then creating axes on those. And you see I have every other set up there. Now for this section, it's a lot smoother transition in cross-section size than it was in the nose. So we don't need to have stations set up throughout the section, or we don't have to set up longeron cross sections throughout, but we're still going to use the multi-section surface rather than the extrusion because the section is changing size. Plus, we want to be able to control where it's the extrusion or the longeron stops, so that's another reason to have to use the multi-section volume. So here you can see I stop every other one, stops one section short. And now we have the longerons completed for the aircraft. Just going to hide all the axis systems, clean up the tree a little bit, and clean up what's showing on the airplane. When you create axis systems, it puts them up near the top of the tree, but you can move them to farther levels down if you want.